Tonight, you are not walking into a video. You're stepping into a forest older than memory, more peaceful than thought, and quieter than the mind ever dares to be. Here, there are no tasks, no names, no time, only the hush of wind moving through the leaves, the soft rhythm of insects echoing from tree to tree, and a moon that watches silently, as if it too is about to sleep. This is the place where your thoughts will no longer chase you, where your breath begins to slow and your heart feels weightless again. You have entered the healing forest. With every story told, a layer of tension will fall away. With every pause, you'll hear something deeper than words. So, lay back. Close your eyes if you wish. Let the forest speak. And when morning finds you, you may not remember the words, but you will remember how they made you feel. Peaceful, light, free. You're here now, not in a room, not on a screen, but somewhere deeper. The leaves have accepted you. The wind knows your name. The forest has opened a path just wide enough for one lantern and one quiet heart. And so it begins, the first story of the night. It starts with a boy, a monk, and a path no one else could see. Come closer. Let the story light your way. The lantern path. The forest was deep, and the night was older than memory. There was no path, only trees, and silence, and the hush of something sacred, waiting. An old monk walked quietly beneath the trees, his robes brushed against tall grass. In one hand, he held a small wooden lantern. Its light was soft, barely reaching past the mist, but it was enough. Each step he took revealed only the next step, no more. And yet, he walked without hesitation. A boy followed behind him, barefoot, eyes wide, heart racing. "Master," the boy asked, "how can you walk so calmly in the dark? Don't you fear what lies ahead?" The old monk paused, turned. His eyes were kind. "I fear more what lies behind," he said gently, then turned and kept walking. The path twisted through ferns and fallen logs. At times, the boy could barely see his own hands. Above, the moon played hide and seek through drifting clouds. "Where are we going?" the boy asked again. The monk smiled. "We're already there." The boy looked around, confused. "But it's just forest." The monk nodded. "Exactly." Hours seemed to pass. Sometimes the light flickered. Sometimes the boy stumbled. But the monk never stopped walking. And every time, the boy thought he might be lost. The small lantern would swing gently ahead, steady as the tide. Then came the stream. It was wide and shallow, with smooth stones beneath the water. The monk stepped in, without pause. The lantern trembled in the breeze. The boy hesitated. The water was cold, the stones slippery. "But I can't see the whole path," he whispered. The monk's voice drifted back. "You don't need to. You only need enough light to take the next step." So the boy stepped in, and just like that, he was across. On the other side, the forest changed. The air was warmer, the wind quieter. The boy noticed his own breath for the first time, slow and full. The lantern still glowed. But now, it wasn't as necessary. The moon had returned. It lit up the leaves in silver. It painted shadows like ink on the forest floor. The boy looked up at the monk. "You knew this light would come." The monk's eyes twinkled. "No, I didn't need to." They sat on a large flat rock beside a mossy tree. The boy asked, "Master, why did you bring the lantern?" The monk looked at it, still burning softly beside them. "Not for the forest," he said. "The forest knows where it is." He paused. "I brought it for your fear." The boy stared into the light. He realized something then. The light hadn't changed the forest. It had changed him. He was no longer afraid, because he had walked through the dark and found his breath again. He turned to ask the monk something else, but the monk was gone. Only the lantern remained, still glowing, still enough. And so the boy sat in a forest that no longer frightened him. He had become part of the night. But elsewhere, not far from that same moonlight, another being listened, not to questions, but to silence. The forest had another story to tell, one with softer footsteps and ears tuned to something no words could name. Let us go there now. The Deer That Listened. In the deepest part of the forest, far beyond the footpaths and voices of men, there lived a deer. It was not the kind of deer you see by the roadside or grazing at the forest's edge. This one lived in silence. Complete, blessed silence. No hunter had ever seen it. No sound had startled it. It moved like mist and breathed like wind. And most curious of all, it listened. From the moment it was born beneath the canopy of whispering trees, the deer listened more than it moved. It listened to the rustle of moss under its own hooves, to the creak of bamboo swaying far away, to the laughter of a distant waterfall, and the slow, pulsing heartbeat of the earth itself. It listened so deeply that it no longer needed to run. It knew when danger approached by the change in the breath of the leaves. It could sense a storm by the tremble in the roots. It could feel kindness in the chirp of a single cricket. It was the forest in deer form. One evening, as the moon rose behind the trees like a quiet drumbeat, the deer stood by a still pond. It bowed its head to drink. But before its lips touched the surface, it froze. There was a sound, but not from nature, not from wind or beast or tree. A different kind of sound, painful, heavy, human. It was a boy, young, lost, crying into his knees beneath a fern. The deer didn't move. It only listened. It listened to the way the boy's breath caught and broke, to the way his sobs were not just sad, but full of questions. The deer could hear, beneath the cries, the words that weren't spoken. Why did they leave me? Why wasn't I enough? What did I do wrong? The deer slowly stepped forward, not making a sound. It stood just at the edge of the pond, facing the boy across the water. The boy did not notice, but his breathing began to slow. The deer lay down and waited. Minutes passed, maybe more. Then the boy looked up and saw the deer. They locked eyes, one full of tears, the other full of stillness. The boy didn't speak. He didn't move. Something told him he didn't need to. Instead, he listened. And in that listening, he began to hear things, not from the deer, but from within himself. He heard the way his thoughts had been running in circles. He heard how tightly he was clinging to what he couldn't change. He heard how tired he truly was. And then, like dry leaves falling, the tension began to drop away. Not all at once, but gently, softly, breath by breath. The deer stood, walked around the pond, and sat beside him. The boy didn't reach out. The deer didn't lean in. They just sat, side by side, not sharing words, only presence. And in that stillness, the boy's questions did not vanish, but they softened. They stopped scratching at his heart, and that was enough. The moon rose higher. The deer stood once more. The boy whispered, "Thank you." The deer tilted its head as if to say, "It wasn't me who healed you. It was your listening." Then it turned and disappeared into the trees like smoke. The boy sat by the pond a while longer, not crying, not afraid, just still. And so the boy stayed with a quieter heart, for the forest had taught him something no voice ever had, that sometimes listening is the loudest healing of all. Not far from there, another soul wandered, older, slower, stepping over moss with feet that remembered stories the mind had long forgotten. Let us follow them now into the soft green carpet of memory. Moss and memory. There was a man who returned to the forest after many, many years. His hair had grayed, his hands had wrinkled, but his eyes still searched the trees like they used to when he was a child. He didn't come to hike, or to take pictures, or even to find peace. He came because he had forgotten something. Not an object, not a name, but a part of himself. Somewhere in the soft green breath of this forest, he believed that part still waited. The man walked slowly, each step deliberate, as if the ground remembered his weight from long ago. Moss blanketed the stones. Twigs snapped softly underfoot. Above him, the canopy danced with sunlight, breaking through in golden shafts like blessings. He paused near a fallen tree. There was something about it, and then it returned to him. This was the place where, as a boy, he had once cried himself to sleep, face pressed against the moss. His mother and father had argued that day, and he had run here, alone, afraid, angry. He had screamed at the trees, threw rocks at nothing, and when the anger turned to sadness, he lay down and wept into the earth. But then the forest had held him. He remembered the way the moss felt, cool and soft like a whisper, how the sunlight had fallen on his back like a gentle hand, how the chirps and hums and creaks had slowly wrapped around him until the pain had nowhere left to cling. He had fallen asleep, and when he awoke, the anger was gone. The sadness had softened, and in its place, something warm, something still. Now, as an old man, he knelt beside the same mossy ground. He placed his hand upon it and closed his eyes. The memories returned, not like visions, but like sensations. The weight of his childhood, the confusion of that moment, the slow, quiet healing that had happened without words. He whispered, "I forgot you were here." And the moss, in its quiet way, forgave him. He sat and simply breathed, and with each breath, pieces of himself came back. The boy who dreamed of nothing but trees, the boy who listened more than he spoke, the boy who could sit in silence without needing to fill it. He had buried that boy under years of noise, deadlines, disappointments, detours. But now he could feel him again, alive, present, listening. A soft breeze moved the leaves. A bird called out in the distance, and somewhere nearby, a small squirrel paused, watching him curiously. The man smiled, not because he was happy, not because he was fixed, but because, for the first time in years, he wasn't running. He was here, completely, just like before. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was a letter he had written to himself, but never opened. He had written it during a difficult season when the world felt like too much. He had promised himself he'd read it someday when he was ready. He opened it. It said, "Dear me, if you're reading this, it means you made it. I don't know how. I don't know what it cost, but you're still here. Please, don't forget who you are. Don't forget who you were and who you're becoming. There is still time. Go sit in the forest. Breathe. Remember, I'm proud of you." Tears came, not like a storm, but like a soft, healing rain. The sun began to set. The forest turned golden, and the man stood, lighter than before. He placed the letter beneath the moss, a gift to the boy who had once wept here, and to any wanderer who might one day stumble across it. He walked back, not as someone who had been healed, but as someone who had remembered what healing feels like. In the heart of the forest, the past is never gone. It rests in the moss, in the branches, in the stillness between steps, and just beyond the bend, in that quiet trail, something small clings to a high branch, refusing to fall. A single leaf with one last lesson before it lets go. The leaf that waited, high above the forest floor, where the wind whispered secrets only the treetops could hear. One leaf remained. It was late in the season. Autumn had come and gone. Every other leaf on the branch had fallen weeks ago, spinning and fluttering to the soft ground like dancers in a final bow. But not this one. This leaf waited. It wasn't because the wind hadn't tried. It had. Strong gusts had pulled and pushed and sung their wild songs, inviting the leaf to let go. But still, it clung. Even the branch had whispered gently, "It's time." But the leaf only quivered and stayed. It didn't quite know why. It only knew, not yet. From its high place, the leaf watched the world below change. The animals had begun their long sleep. The forest trails had quieted. Frost kissed the ground in the early mornings, and mist curled through the trees like smoke from a hidden fire. The leaf knew it was alone now, and yet it did not feel lonely. It was listening. It listened to the silence between the breezes, to the creak of wood beneath weightless snow, to the rhythm of its own soft flutter. And in that stillness, the leaf remembered. It remembered its first days, small, bright green, full of life. It had bathed in sunlight, danced with the spring winds, shared whispers with squirrels and birds who perched beside it. And then summer, full, warm, endless. And then fall. The colors came, red, orange, gold. The others began to release. Some fell quickly, with joy. Some clung in fear, then surrendered. Others were simply blown away. But not this leaf. One morning, as the fog rose gently from the forest floor and the sky remained still, the leaf heard something, not with ears, but with its whole being. It was the tree, speaking not with words, but with knowing. You don't have to wait anymore. And the leaf felt it, that the waiting was not fear. It was love. It had wanted to see it all, to feel every shift, to witness the forest as long as it could. And now it was ready. With one final breath of wind, so soft it could barely be called a breeze, the leaf loosened its hold. It drifted, not falling, not flying, just floating. It spun once, twice, twirled slowly through shafts of golden light. Down, down, past branches that nodded as it passed, past birds still dozing in their nests, past memories held in bark and rain, until it landed, not with a thud, but with a hush. A bed of moss received it, a quiet place, a soft place, a holy place. The forest sighed, and somewhere in the unseen roots of that ancient tree, something opened, a small space, ready, waiting. The leaf would become something new, not gone, not lost, transformed. And so the wind moved on, and the story of the leaf became part of the soil, the moss, the very breath of the forest. It had waited, it had listened, and it had let go, not out of fear, but peace. Some things fall when pushed. Others wait for the right silence. Beneath that tree, where the leaf now rests, a small stream runs slow and cold. Over that stream, a child builds something, not with wood, but with stones, one by one, step by step. Let us follow the sound of water now, to the edge of that gentle river. The bridge of stones. At the edge of the forest, where the trees bowed low and the river ran slow, a small boy stood barefoot in the mud. The water wasn't deep. It sang softly over the smooth stones, but it was wide enough to keep him from crossing. On the other side, a patch of sunlit grass, a few sleeping deer, and a path he had never walked. The boy didn't know why he wanted to cross, only that he did, and he began to build a bridge, not of wood, not of rope, but of stones. He crouched by the riverbank and searched for the right ones, flat, round, heavy, light. He carried them one by one, his hands muddy, his knees damp. He placed the first stone carefully, ankle deep in the stream. It sank a little, settled. Then another and another. Some slipped, some sank too fast, Some he dropped entirely, but still, he continued. Hours passed. Birds flew overhead. The wind brushed the trees like a harp string. He didn't speak, didn't complain. He just built. Each stone was a choice. Each placement a lesson in balance. Not too close, not too far. Each one supporting the next. His fingers grew tired. His arms ached, but he never looked back. Only forward to the next space, the next stone. A fox came to watch. It sat silently across the bank, ears twitching, eyes curious. The boy glanced up and smiled. "I'm almost there," he whispered. The fox didn't answer, but it didn't leave. By now, half the river was covered. The stones weren't perfect. They wobbled when stepped on, but together they held. Each one had found its place, not because it was flawless, but because it belonged. Then came the hardest part, the middle. The current was stronger here, the depth unforgiving. He hesitated, his breath short. A part of him wanted to stop, to sit down, to wait. But he had come this far, and sometimes that's reason enough to keep going. He searched for a heavy stone, one that could hold the center. He found it near a tree, hidden beneath wet leaves. Dark, dense, cold. It took both hands to lift. He carried it with care, feet slipping, heart pounding. He reached the edge of the last stone, paused, then placed the stone gently, firmly, and stepped back. It held. The boy smiled, not because he was finished, but because he knew now he could finish. Step by step, stone by stone, he reached the other side. The fox followed, light on its paws. The sun warmed his face. The air smelled of pine and promise. He didn't run down the path. He didn't cheer. He just stood there, still, quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after doing something difficult, alone, and knowing you didn't give up. Later, long after the boy had walked on, others found the bridge. Some crossed, some added their own stones, and the bridge grew, not taller, not grander, but stronger, one step at a time, one stone at a time, a quiet bridge in a quiet forest, built by a quiet boy who simply wanted to cross. A bridge isn't always something built. Sometimes it's something remembered. And just beyond that river, beneath the ferns that sway like sleepy monks, lies an old bell, rusted, hidden, waiting, not to be rung, but to be heard. Come closer. The bell has a story. The bell beneath the ferns. In a forgotten clearing, just past where the trees grow thick with moss and the ground becomes soft with pine needles, there was a bell. It didn't hang in a temple or sit on an altar. It lay beneath the ferns, half buried, wrapped in roots, blanketed in stillness. No one had rung it for years. Perhaps no one remembered it was even there, except the forest. The bell had once belonged to a small monastery, long crumbled and reclaimed by vines. Back then, the bell sang every morning. At sunrise, its sound would ripple through the hills, over streams, waking birds and hearts alike. It called monks to meditation, villagers to reflection, children to breakfast. Its tone was clear, like sky after rain. But even more than its sound, it was its silence that lingered. Between each strike, the air held stillness, a pause, a breath. It was in that pause that people found their peace. Then one day, the bell fell. Not in violence, but in silence. Time had worn the wood that held it. The frame had cracked, and the bell, too heavy with memory, slid gently into the earth. No one saw it fall. No one heard it land. But the forest did. The ferns grew over it, layer by layer. The moss softened its edges. Rain cleaned its skin. And the bell waited. Years passed, generations. The monastery became a tale, then a myth, then nothing. But the bell remained, and it began to listen. It listened to the footsteps of deer, to the way foxes tiptoed through leaves, to the slow crackle of snow in winter, to the whisper of wind threading pine needles like prayer beads. And once, in the dead of night, it listened to a child crying beneath the stars, not lost, just overwhelmed. The child curled near the bell, never knowing it was there. And in that closeness, the bell felt its purpose return, not to be struck, but to hold space, to listen. One autumn afternoon, a traveler wandered into the clearing. He carried no phone, no map, only a notebook, half full, and a tired heart. He wasn't looking for anything, just a place to sit. He brushed aside a fern and saw something beneath, a curved shape, smooth metal, ancient, quiet. He placed a hand on it. It was cool, solid, still. He didn't try to ring it. Instead, he sat beside it, crossed his legs, closed his eyes, and listened. The forest hushed. The wind paused. A single bird cried far off, and then nothing. In that space, the traveler began to hear not sound, but story. A monk chanting long ago, a child laughing, a breath held in before the bell was struck, the silence after it stopped ringing. He didn't move for minutes, maybe hours. And when he opened his eyes, the bell had not changed. But he had. He smiled, not because he had found something, but because he had found nothing, and that nothing was enough. He rose, touched the bell once more, and whispered, "Thank you." The ferns swayed gently as he walked away, and the bell, though still unmoved, seemed lighter somehow, as if its silence had been heard. To this day, the bell lies beneath those ferns, waiting, not to make a sound, but to hold a space for anyone who has forgotten how to be still and is ready to remember. Some things ring without sound. Some stories are told through silence. Deeper in the forest, beyond the bell's silent watch, stands a crooked tree. It leans, not from weakness, but from love. Let us go there now. The tree has waited long enough. The tree that leaned. In the quiet depths of the forest, where the sunlight filtered through 1,000 green fingers of leaves, there stood a tree that leaned. It wasn't the tallest tree, or the strongest. Its bark was worn, moss-covered in places, with a split running along its trunk. But the way it leaned was gentle, purposeful, as if bowing ever so slightly to something unseen. Children who once wandered the trail called it the listening tree, because when they whispered their secrets beneath its branches, they felt heard. Years ago, when the tree was young, it grew like all the others, reaching straight for the sky. Its trunk was firm, its roots were deep, its path was upward. But one winter, a fierce wind came. It howled down the mountain, snapping young saplings, twisting the air into something sharp and reckless. When the wind reached the tree, it didn't break it. Instead, it bent it, not in an instant, but slowly, relentlessly. The tree held on. Its roots clung to the earth. Its core refused to crack. And when the storm passed, it did not spring back. It leaned, and it never stood straight again. At first, the other trees whispered. They stood tall and proud, shaking their leaves in confusion. "Why don't you grow upright again? Straighten up. You'll never reach the sunlight like that." But the leaning tree didn't answer. Not with words, not with protest. It simply continued to grow. Slowly, steadily, in the direction it now faced. And in time, things began to change. A small spring bubbled up beside its roots, protected by its tilted shade. Moss grew thick beneath its arch, inviting deer to rest. Birds nested in its crook, where branches curved like a cradle. Children tired from walking the forest trail, would lean their backs against it, and somehow it made their worries feel a little less heavy. Old monks would stop beside it in silence, their palms pressed gently to its bark. One of them once said, "This tree prays not with words, but with posture." Decades passed. Storms came and went. Some trees fell. Others twisted and broke, but the leaning tree remained. It had learned how to bend, how to listen to the wind, how to yield without surrendering. It had become a part of the forest's rhythm, not fighting the elements, but flowing with them. One spring morning, a woman came to the forest. She walked with slow steps, carrying a weight that couldn't be seen. She didn't know what she was looking for, only that her chest felt tight and her thoughts buzzed too loudly to hear anything else. Then she saw the tree. At first, she almost passed it. It didn't call attention to itself, but something about its gentle curve, its quiet grace, made her stop. She touched its bark. It was rough, but warm from the sun. She sat beneath it, closed her eyes, and for the first time in days, she breathed fully. As she sat there, something shifted, not outside her, but inside. Her shoulders dropped, her jaw unclenched, her thoughts slowed, and in the silence, she heard something not in words, but in truth. You do not have to be straight to be strong. You do not have to reach the sky to offer shade. You do not have to stand tall to be whole. She opened her eyes and saw it, the tree that leaned, and all around it, life, resting in its shadow, drinking from its roots, singing from its branches. She smiled through tears she didn't know she needed to cry. Then she whispered, "Thank you for not standing tall." The forest heard her, but it had already known, because the tree had always been enough. Some trees stand by yielding. Some truths shine by bending. Further down the forest path, a gentle light flickers on the water, a lantern floating slowly into the current, waiting for no one, but guiding everyone. Let's follow its glow. The lantern in the stream. There was once a stream in the forest that seemed to hum even when the wind was still. It wasn't wide or deep, just a silver ribbon that wove gently through the moss and roots. But at night, it glowed, not with magic, but with memory, because every evening, as the sky turned violet and the stars blinked open, a single lantern would appear, floating downstream with a soft, golden light. No one quite knew where it came from, or who set it adrift. Some said it was left by the forest spirits. Others said it was a tribute to someone lost. But most simply watched it in silence, because the lantern never rushed, never wavered, never burned too brightly. It just glowed softly, calmly, and it never failed to return, each night drifting through the dark, casting just enough light to see the path without disturbing the shadows. Many years ago, a boy named Toma lived near the stream. He was quiet, not because he was shy, but because his thoughts ran deeper than the words he could find. While the village played and shouted, Toma wandered the woods barefoot, listening to things others didn't notice. The sound of mushrooms growing, the slow bend of branches, the silence between the wind's sighs. But even Toma had storms inside. He worried about everything. What if he disappointed his father? What if he failed at the task given to him? What if he forgot something important? What if he was never enough? The questions looped in his mind like restless birds, beating their wings against his chest. One evening, when his thoughts felt too loud to carry, he sat by the stream. The water, as always, was moving, but gently, like it knew the weight he bore. And then the lantern came. Its flame flickered gold and warm, reflected in 100 tiny ripples. Toma watched it approach, and for reasons he didn't understand, his breath slowed. The lantern didn't fix anything, didn't give him answers, didn't tell him what to do. It just floated, light, unafraid of the dark, accepting of the current. Toma returned the next night, and the next, and the next. Each evening, the lantern passed, sometimes a little earlier, sometimes a little later, but always appearing. One night, it wasn't there. Toma sat and waited, but no light came. His thoughts began to buzz again. Maybe something had gone wrong. Maybe the stream was too low. Maybe it had sunk. Maybe the peace he found wasn't real after all. He stood to leave, disappointment curling in his chest. Then he saw something. A small, flickering glow behind the rocks upstream, caught in a pile of branches. He rushed toward it. Sure enough, the lantern was stuck. Its flame was still alive, but the flow had been blocked by fallen debris. Toma hesitated. He could leave it, or he rolled up his sleeves, waded into the cool water, and gently freed the lantern. It bobbed for a moment, then continued on its way as if nothing had happened. That night, as Toma walked home, he realized something. Sometimes the light gets caught. Sometimes it needs help. Sometimes peace isn't passive. Sometimes it's a quiet effort, a gentle act of freeing what already exists. Years passed. Toma grew. he became a lantern maker, not just of paper and wax, but of moments and pauses and gentleness. He taught others how to breathe, how to listen, how to sit in stillness without demanding clarity. He still visited the stream, still watched the lantern float by, still smiled when he saw it drift, unbothered. But now, when it didn't appear, he didn't panic. He waited patiently, knowing that even if the light was out of sight, it hadn't disappeared. It was simply finding its way back. And so, the lantern continues, drifting in the stream each night, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, but always glowing. A reminder that calmness doesn't always arrive loud, that peace isn't always perfect. But like the lantern, it floats gently through our days if we learn to notice it. The lantern floats on, and the stream keeps singing. But deeper in the forest, there is a single smooth stone, untouched for centuries, and beside it, a small cicada begins to stir. A story of stillness, and the sound that rises from silence awaits. The stone and the cicada. In a clearing hidden deep within the forest, so far off the trail that even seasoned monks had never marked it, there sat a stone. It was smooth, round, and pale like moonlight. Moss crowned its edges, and tiny lichens painted it with silver specks. The stone had been there for centuries. No one remembered when it arrived, or if it had ever moved. But everything in the forest seemed to know it. Leaves fell softly around it, never directly on top. Roots grew near, but not over. And even the wind slowed as it passed. The stone didn't shine, didn't hum, didn't carry secrets or sacred carvings. It simply was. And in its stillness, it held a presence, like something that had witnessed much, and now only listened. In the warm season, just beside the stone, a cicada buried deep beneath the earth stirred. It had been sleeping, not for days, not for months, but for years. Tucked away in the silence below, it had waited. Waited for warmth, waited for time, waited for something ancient within itself to say, now. That moment came with no ceremony, just a slow rise in soil temperature, a subtle pull in the darkness, and a gentle itch in its wings. It crawled upward, digging through layers of time until, one cool twilight, it emerged. Next to the stone. The stone didn't greet it, didn't move, didn't shine. But the cicada paused beside it, its shell still soft, its body trembling with new breath, and felt something settle in its tiny chest. a calmness, as if, in all its years of waiting, the forest had saved this one space, this single, still witness, just for its arrival. The cicada climbed a nearby stalk of bamboo. There, in the fading light, it did what it had waited so long to do. It sang, a soft, crackling note at first, then another and another. Soon, a full-throated hum filled the air, not loud, but full of longing and memory and the joy of simply being. The stone listened. Every evening, the cicada sang, and every evening, the stone remained. The two never touched, but the space between them became a kind of temple. Birds would stop their fluttering nearby. Foxes would tread more softly. Even the wind seemed to hush. For in that humble clearing, stillness and song, stone and cicada had formed a rhythm. One day, clouds gathered, thick, heavy. The sky cracked open and the rain fell. Not gently, but like a waterfall turned sideways. The cicada clung to its leaf, wings shaking. The cold crept into its body, and the song stopped. It slipped, fell, tumbled through wet leaves, and landed next to the stone. Weak, quiet. Its time was almost up. The stone did not move, did not shelter it, but it held the space. The same space it had offered when the cicada first emerged. The same space it offered to every moment, without judgment, without resistance. And in that space, the cicada breathed, not to fight, not to survive, but simply to be. Morning came. The storm passed. The cicada had stilled, its wings folded, its body light. The forest gathered around silently, not to mourn, but to honor. The cicada had fulfilled its one task, to rise, to sing, to fall in peace. And the stone remained, bearing quiet witness as always. Years passed. New cicadas came. New rains fell. But the stone never moved. Some said it was just a rock. Others believed it held the spirit of an old monk. But most never saw it at all. Only a few. The ones who listened deeply would stumble upon that quiet glade, sit in the moss nearby, and feel something subtle settle inside them. As if the stone was saying, you don't have to speak to be heard. You don't have to move to make space. Just be still, and the world will find you. And far above, in the trees, a single cicada begins to sing. The stone remained. The cicada vanished. But in their meeting, the forest became more whole. Now, let us follow the breeze as it carries a single leaf, ready to fall for the very last time. The leaf's last fall. In the northern grove of the forest, there stood a tall, aging maple. It had seen more seasons than any of the trees around it, its bark thick with time, its roots deep in the earth like the fingers of a meditating monk. Each autumn, its leaves turned a brilliant red, so vivid they seemed to glow against the graying skies. But there was one leaf, small, quiet, tucked near the top of the tallest branch, that was not yet ready to let go. The leaf had grown in spring, bathed in sunlight, danced with the wind, and whispered with birds who stopped to rest. It had known joy, the tickle of rain, the hum of bees, the hush of moonlight. But now, as the days shortened and the air turned crisp, it felt something different, a pulling, a loosening, change, and with that change came fear. "What happens when I fall?" the leaf asked the breeze. The breeze, soft and old, replied, "You land, you rest, and then you become something new." "But I like being a leaf," it whispered. "I like this view, this branch, this life." The breeze did not push. It simply wrapped the leaf gently and moved on. Below, in the undergrowth, a fox paused to look up. She had seen many leaves fall, some fast, some spinning, some drifting like little boats on invisible rivers. Each one danced differently. Each one landed where it was meant to. She closed her eyes and continued on. The leaf held on, even as others let go, spiraling down in slow motion flights, gathering in soft piles below. Even as the branch grew bare and the winds grew stronger, still the leaf clung. It wasn't out of stubbornness. It was out of love. Love for the sky, love for the sun, love for the silence that came after rain. One night, a full moon rose, silver and wide. The grove shimmered with its light, and the old tree whispered upward, a sound like cracking bark and bending limbs. "It's okay, little one. All things return, not in sorrow, but in rhythm." The leaf trembled. It was tired now. The stem that held it was thin. The wind sang again, not loud, but clear. And then it let go. It did not fall fast. It did not fall far. It floated, not as a leaf afraid to leave, but as a leaf ready to return. Down, down, through the crisp air, past the strong trunk, toward the soft earth below. And then it landed. Beneath it, the forest floor welcomed the touch. The moss made room. The soil remembered. And though the leaf did not move again, something shifted. In the quiet, its shape began to soften. Its color deepened. Its edges curled inward like a bow, and slowly it began to become part of the earth. Not gone, but changed. The next spring, a small sprout would rise near the place it fell, green and new, yet carrying the memory of the red leaf that had once trembled on a high branch. Seasons continued. The tree grew older. New leaves appeared, some bright, some quiet. But in the wind, especially on cool nights, one could almost hear the whisper, "The letting go is not the end. It is the beginning of becoming." The leaf has landed, but in its fall, a new journey begins. Now, take a step, a soft step, onto a path few have walked, a path where sound disappears and listening begins. The silent path. There was a path deep within the forest that few ever found. It wasn't marked. It wasn't wide. In fact, if you blinked, you might miss it entirely. Just a narrow trail, swallowed by ferns and soft moss, sloping gently downward into mist. But those who did find it all reported the same thing: silence. Not the absence of noise, but the kind of silence that wraps around your chest and somehow makes your breathing slow. Many years ago, a wandering monk named Rio made this path his home. He arrived with little: a worn robe, a wooden bowl, and a flute he never played. He did not build a hut. He did not start a temple. He simply walked. Each morning, he followed the path deeper into the forest. Each evening, he returned to the same small clearing, slept beneath the stars, drank from the stream, and ate only what nature offered. Villagers nearby grew curious. Some whispered that he had lost his voice. Others said he was practicing a vow of silence. But those who approached him with questions were met with only a smile, the kind that said more than words ever could. One day, a young boy named Toma, curious beyond measure, ventured into the forest to find him. Toma was loud by nature, full of stories, full of energy, and often full of frustration. He didn't understand silence. He found it boring, empty. But something about the monk intrigued him. When he finally found the clearing, Rio was sitting beneath a cedar tree, eyes closed, hands resting in his lap. Toma stepped on a twig. It snapped loudly. Rio opened his eyes and smiled. Toma expected words, a greeting, at least a nod, but there was only stillness. Feeling awkward, the boy sat across from him. 5 minutes passed, then 10. No one spoke, not even a whisper. Toma fidgeted, coughed, shifted positions. Still silence. And slowly, something shifted. His breathing softened. The sounds of the forest, birds, breeze, rustling leaves, grew clearer. His thoughts, once bouncing like pebbles in a jar, began to quiet. He looked at Rio, and the monk simply gestured with his chin. Down the path, Toma stood, Rio stood, and together they walked. No talking, no pointing, no instructions, just slow, deliberate steps through the woods. The path grew steeper, then flatter, then turned into stone. A stream joined them for a time, its burbling like laughter. Then it faded. Toma stopped at one point and looked back. The way they had come was no longer visible. Only trees, mist, and the growing quiet inside his chest. At one bend, Rio paused. He pointed to a tree where a spider had spun a web between two branches. Dewdrops clung to its threads, catching the light. The boy nodded, unsure why it mattered, but he remembered it. At another spot, Rio reached down and handed Toma a small stone. Smooth, heavy, ordinary. Toma kept it. They continued. By the time they returned to the clearing, the sun was setting. Toma felt tired, but not in his body, in his mind. But it wasn't a bad kind of tired. It was like he'd emptied something and found a kind of peace he hadn't known was missing. Rio sat down again. Toma sat beside him. Still, neither spoke. But now, the silence felt full. The boy visited many times after that. Sometimes he brought questions, but Rio answered with gestures, a gaze, a leaf placed in his palm, a moment of stillness beneath the rain. And over time, Toma began to understand. Not every question needs a word. Not every answer is a sound. Years later, when the monk passed away, he left behind nothing. No shrine, no journal, only the path and the silence it carried. People who find it today often say the same thing. I walked for an hour and came back different. Some don't notice what's changed. Others say the forest seemed to listen. But all of them, even the busiest hearts, feel something fall away while walking that trail, as if the path itself is gently whispering, let go of noise, listen deeper. Everything you need is already here. In silence, we walk. In silence, we remember. But now, let us return to the world of whispers, where a single bamboo waited for the right time to grow. The bamboo that waited. There is a kind of bamboo that grows differently from the others. In its first year, it doesn't break the surface, nor in the second, nor the third, not even in the fourth. It seems still, empty, lifeless. But below the earth, its roots stretch wide, patiently weaving a hidden foundation. Then suddenly, in the 5th year, it rises, and within weeks, it can grow over 80 feet tall. This story begins with a young boy named Aki. Aki lived on the edge of the forest with his grandmother, a quiet woman with deep eyes and hands that always smelled of wet soil. She kept a garden, mostly herbs, a few vegetables, and in one small corner, a plot of bamboo. But not just any bamboo. This one she called waiting bamboo. Each morning, she'd kneel beside it, water the soil, and whisper something Aki couldn't hear. The patch never changed. No green, no shoots, just dirt. One day, Aki finally asked, "Why do you keep watering that spot? There's nothing there." She smiled. "It's not that there's nothing. It's that something is happening where we cannot see." Aki frowned. It didn't make sense. Weeks passed, then months. Aki watered it too, just to help. But he grew frustrated. The tomatoes grew. The mint flourished. But the bamboo patch remained the same, bare. "Grandma, what if it never grows?" he asked. She chuckled. "Then it is still teaching us patience." Time passed. Aki went to school, learned numbers, stories, poems. Still, no bamboo. Then, one summer, a storm hit the forest hard. Trees fell. Their garden flooded. The wind roared all night long like a beast in pain. The next morning, much was broken. The tomatoes were crushed, the herbs scattered, and Aki's heart sank. But as the rain cleared, he saw it. In the bamboo patch, a single green shoot, small but certain. He called to his grandmother. She didn't look surprised. "Ah," she said, "it begins." In the days that followed, the shoot became a stalk. The stalk multiplied. Every morning, they grew taller. By the end of the month, they towered above the garden like gentle soldiers. Aki was stunned. "How is it growing so fast?" he asked. Grandma placed her hand on his shoulder. "Because it waited. And while it waited, it prepared." Years passed. Aki grew into a young man. He left home for work in the city, his life becoming filled with screens, schedules, and noise. There were days he felt lost, tired, as though everyone else was growing while he stood still. When that happened, he remembered the bamboo, and he'd close his eyes and picture the roots, spreading wide in the dark, quiet and unseen. One day, he returned to the forest. His grandmother had passed, but the bamboo still stood, taller than ever, swaying gently in the wind. He knelt beside the patch, just as she had done, and whispered, "Thank you for teaching me how to wait." There are things in life we cannot rush. Not healing, not wisdom, not growth. sometimes we need to trust the roots, even if no one else sees them. And now, from the roots beneath, we rise to the cliffs above, where even stone can soften in the rain. The rock and the rain. In the heart of the forest stood a giant rock, jagged, dark, unmoving. It had been there long before any tree, before the birds, before even the rivers took their winding shapes. No one knew how it came to rest there. Perhaps a mountain had crumbled. Perhaps the earth had sighed. But the rock remained, untouched, unaffected, until the rain came. It didn't come like a storm, not thunderous or wild, not fast, just a steady, soft drizzle, drop by drop, day after day. At first, the rock ignored it. Rain was nothing, temporary, gentle. But the rain was patient. It had no ego, no rush, no need to prove itself. And so it fell, over the rock's face, into its cracks, around its base. Over time, tiny streams formed, then trickles, then tiny grooves. The rock began to change. Far from the forest, in a quiet village, lived a man named Haru. Haru was known for his temper. A sharp word, a slammed door, a boiling heart that cooled slowly. He tried to be calm, tried to meditate, tried to follow the way. But inside, it always felt like the fire returned. "I'm just made this way," he told himself. Then one day, after a particularly difficult moment, he left his home in silence and walked deep into the forest. He had heard of a hermit who lived near the cliffside, a woman named Kinu, said to be over 90, with eyes like river stone and words as soft as moss. After 2 days of walking, Haru found her small hut tucked beneath pine and ivy. She didn't look up when he arrived. She just stirred her pot of tea and said, "Sit. You've brought a storm with you." He sat. They shared silence. Finally, he said, "I don't know how to change. I try, and then I explode." Kinu nodded, still silent. After tea, she handed him a woven straw mat and said, "Tomorrow we walk." The next morning, they followed a narrow trail until they reached it. The giant rock. Haru stared at it. Kinu pointed. "This was once sharp, unclimbable. You see the curves now?" He nodded. The rock had deep channels, like soft scars. Its face was rounded. Some places shimmered where moss had taken hold. "The rain shaped it," she whispered, "not with force, but with presence." She instructed Haru to return each day, to sit by the rock, to say nothing, to breathe. He thought it absurd, but something in her tone, like stone meeting water, made him obey. Day after day, Haru sat, Sometimes it rained, sometimes it didn't, but always the rock remained, and so did he. In time, his thoughts slowed, not because he forced them, but because the forest taught him to listen. He noticed the wind, how it never rushed, how it bent the branches without breaking them. He noticed the ants, how they detoured without complaint. He noticed himself, how his breath still came, even on the days he felt lost. One morning, after many weeks, Kinu joined him. They sat in silence, watching the mist rise from the stone. She asked softly, "Do you feel different?" He thought for a moment. "I don't feel fixed, but I don't feel stuck anymore either." She smiled. "That is the beginning. You are not the fire. You are the space it burns in." Before he left the forest, she gave him one thing: a smooth black pebble from the base of the rock. "Keep it with you," she said. "When anger rises, hold it. Let the rain in you fall." He did, and in the years that followed, the pebble remained in his pocket, a quiet reminder. He still got angry sometimes, but now he let the rain come too. We are not shaped by what crashes into us. We are shaped by what we allow to pass through us, again and again, like the rain over stone. The rock bowed to the rain, and now we look upward to a tree that held the light of the moon, not with branches, but with stillness. The tree that held the moon. In the deepest part of the forest, where the trees stood like monks in prayer, there was one tree unlike the rest. It wasn't the tallest, nor the widest. Its bark was worn, and its branches bent gently like arms in surrender. But the villagers called it Tsukigi, the tree that held the moon. Long ago, a boy named Ren came to the forest after losing his father. His world had grown heavy. Silent meals, shadows in corners, a pain that had no name. At night, sleep wouldn't come. His thoughts were loud, his heart restless. One evening, the village elder gave him advice. "If you cannot sleep, go to the tree that waits for the moon. It holds something words cannot." So Ren walked through the twilight, past fireflies and rustling leaves, until he found it. The tree stood alone in a clearing, its branches twisted upward, as if offering something back to the sky. Above it, a full moon hovered, glowing white gold and still. For reasons he couldn't explain, Ren sat beneath it, and for the first time in weeks, his mind slowed. Night after night, Ren returned. Sometimes the moon was full, sometimes only a sliver, sometimes hidden behind clouds. But still, he came. The tree said nothing, offered nothing, Yet each time, Ren felt less burdened, not because the tree changed, but because it didn't try to fix him. It just was. And in that stillness, he found room to breathe. One night, a traveler happened upon Ren sitting there. She asked, "What does this tree give you?" He thought for a long time. "It gives me nothing," he said, "but in its nothing, I find everything I need." Years passed. Ren grew older, and life called him elsewhere. He left the village, became a teacher in a distant town. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw the tree, not in detail, but in feeling. That open sky, that quiet grace, and the way the moon always returned. One winter, Ren came back to the village. He had grown tired. His bones ached with age. His dreams had grown thin. He went straight to the clearing. The tree was still there. Older, yes. One branch broken, leaves thinner, but its shape unchanged. Above it, the moon, perfect and full. He sat once more beneath its limbs. Tears he didn't know he was holding fell quietly. And as he closed his eyes, a sense of peace settled in, not from memory, but from presence. The moon does not ask to be held. The tree does not ask to be noticed. But in their quiet dance, something in us remembers how to rest. Sometimes we do not need answers, or solutions, or even hope. Sometimes we just need a place to sit, a stillness to echo our own, and a moon to remind us light always returns. The tree held the moon, and now we follow the sound of something deeper, a bell that echoes not to call, but to release. The lantern at the heart of the forest. In the heart of the forest, where even the wind seemed to pause, there was a place so quiet, even the stars whispered when passing overhead. Few ever reached this place, not because it was hidden, but because it required stillness to be seen. And at the very center of that hush stood a lantern. It was not large. Its base was stone, softened by moss. Its sides were wooden and weathered, carved with a single character, Shin, meaning heart or truth, depending on how one chose to read it. Long ago, there lived an old man named Hiro. He had wandered through life as a lantern maker, shaping light from wood, oil, and flame. His lanterns were known not for their brightness, but for the gentleness of their glow. People said they did not light the room. They quieted it. But as he grew older, his hands trembled, and his last lantern would not light. No matter how he trimmed the wick, no matter how carefully he breathed into the flame, it remained dark. He thought perhaps it was a sign. His time had ended, but instead of tossing the lantern aside, he carried it into the forest, the one place where silence had always welcomed him. He walked deep into the night, guided not by moonlight, but by memory. The forest accepted his steps, and each crunch of leaf beneath his foot was met with soft, echoing calm. At last, Hero found the clearing. He placed the lantern on the earth, its glass catching a sliver of starlight. Then he sat beside it. He did not try to light it again. He simply sat. One night passed, then 2, then 7. Still no flame. And yet, Hero felt no frustration. He noticed how the darkness wasn't empty. It pulsed softly with sound. Owls in the trees, the hush of wind folding over leaves, the deep, slow breathing of the soil itself. His own breath joined the rhythm of it all. And strangely, he began to feel that the lantern didn't need a flame after all. Its purpose was not to light the world, but to quiet the one carrying it. One morning, he awoke to the faint sound of footsteps. A child had wandered into the forest, lost. The boy was shivering, wide-eyed, frightened. Without a word, Hero held out the lantern. The boy hesitated, then sat beside him. They said nothing. They simply breathed together, and slowly the boy's shoulders dropped. His eyes softened. His panic gave way to stillness. After some time, the boy looked into the lantern. "Why doesn't it light?" he asked. Hero smiled. "It doesn't need to. The quiet is enough." From then on, those who entered the forest alone, with questions, sorrows, or no purpose at all, would sometimes find the lantern. No flame, no heat, only a gentle invitation to sit. Those who sat always left lighter. Some said they'd seen it glow, not from flame, but from within. Perhaps it was their heart, perhaps the forests, or perhaps the lantern knew something they didn't. Even now, they say the lantern remains. No one knows how it lasts, untouched by time, unmoved by storm. But those who are quiet enough, those who listen without seeking, they still find it. And when they leave, they carry something with them. Not answers, not light, just peace. Where light could not burn, stillness bloomed. And now we cross to another place of waiting. A bridge held not by wood, but by patience. The bridge that waited. There was once a bridge in the forest that led nowhere. It stretched over no river, no gorge, no road. Both sides of it met solid earth. And yet, it stood, sturdy, still, covered in moss and time. Travelers would pass it by, confused. A bridge with no purpose, they'd say. But one day, a woman named Kaori stopped. She had come to the forest because she had lost everything: her home, her job, her sense of who she was. Each step forward felt meaningless, each breath too heavy. And when she saw the strange bridge, something in her paused. She sat beside it, watching as wind stirred the moss on the railing. She wondered, was this her life now? Stuck between one ending and the beginning that never came? The bridge didn't answer. It creaked gently in the breeze, wood bending ever so slightly as if breathing with her. So Kaori stayed. She laid her pack down, and for the first time in weeks, she didn't try to figure it out. She just sat. Days passed. Birds gathered on the rails. A fox curled beneath its shadow, and every evening the sky turned gold and lavender above it. One afternoon, a monk appeared. He carried nothing but a small wooden flute. He bowed to her and asked, "Why do you sit here, traveler?" Kaori didn't know how to answer. She looked at the bridge and said, "It doesn't go anywhere." The monk nodded. Exactly. He sat beside her and began to play. A soft, breathy tune floated between the trees, notes like falling leaves. No melody, no end, just presence. When the music stopped, he spoke again. Most bridges are for crossing, but this one is for waiting. Waiting until the mind stops running and the soul remembers it has arrived. Kaori felt something shift in her chest, a loosening, a soft ache releasing. Tears fell, not from pain, but from recognition. This bridge wasn't for getting somewhere. It was for being nowhere. Over time, she noticed others came, not many, but those who had wandered far enough, who had grown tired of searching, found the bridge. They sat quietly. Some wept, some smiled. No one crossed, because there was nothing to cross over to. The bridge was already the destination. Kaori stayed for many moons, but one day she rose. Not with urgency, not to move on, but because she had become still, enough to hear her own quiet truth. She bowed to the bridge. It creaked once in reply. Then she walked, not forward, not back, but inward. And the forest welcomed her steps. They say the bridge is still there, waiting, not in impatience, but in peace, for the next soul who needs not a road, but a rest. Not every bridge must be crossed. Some are meant to hold you until you are ready to hold yourself. And now, a gentle creature reminds us, even sleep arrives when it is truly safe. The owl who slept too soon. In a patch of trees not far from the silver stream, there lived an owl named Rio. But Rio was not like the other owls. while his siblings prided themselves on hunting through the night, piercing the dark with wide eyes and sharper instincts. Rio preferred naps, lots of them. From the moment he hatched, he yawned more than he hooted. He'd perch on branches and drift off before sunset. During hunting lessons, he often dozed mid-flight. The elder owls shook their heads. "An owl must master the night," they'd say, beaks twitching disapprovingly. "The stars are our sky, not our ceiling." But Rio didn't mind. In his dreams, the trees sang to him. The moon blinked sleepily. Even the wind wrapped him in lullabies. One day, a particularly strict owl named Sora pulled Rio aside. "Rio," she said sternly, "you are not fulfilling your owlness." Rio tilted his head. "I thought I was just being still." Sora narrowed her eyes. "Stillness without purpose is just laziness." She handed him a tiny scroll. "Tonight you will fly to the far cedar tree, watch over the forest from above, and return with a report by dawn." Then she flew off, proud of her instruction. Rio sighed. That night, he climbed to the cedar tree, wings tucked, eyes wide. For once, determined to do things the right way. He watched and dozed off. But in his sleep, something curious happened. His breath slowed so deeply, his body became lighter than air. A breeze lifted him gently from the branch, not flying, not falling, just floating. He hovered through the trees, eyes closed, wings relaxed, guided not by sight, but by stillness itself. He passed by a squirrel cradling its child, a fox curled in a hollow log, a pond where fireflies pulsed like breathing stars. Everywhere he drifted, sleep followed. Even the leaves quieted their rustling. When he finally returned, Sora was waiting. "You fell asleep, didn't you?" Rio nodded slowly. "I did." She opened her beak to scold him, but paused. Behind Rio, dozens of creatures were gathered. Deer, rabbits, turtles, even a grumpy old badger. They all looked serene. Some were even asleep, right there, standing up. Rio blinked. "I think I brought something back," he whispered. Sora sighed, perhaps louder than she meant to. "You didn't follow the instructions," she said. "But maybe," she added softly, "you followed something deeper." From then on, Rio was no longer scolded for his naps. Instead, the elders began to say, "In every flock, there must be one who carries the dreams of the forest." Rio became known not for his sharp vision, but for his presence. He taught younger owls how to listen to the hush between breezes, how to rest their wings before they grew tired, how to find peace before they needed it. He never wrote a single report, but those who met him remembered the way the world softened when he was near. And sometimes, deep in the night, if you listen closely beneath the owl calls, you'll hear one long, slow yawn. That's Rio, still dreaming, still teaching the forest how to sleep. The forest doesn't ask you to be sharp, or wise, or even awake. It only asks that you arrive as you are. And perhaps that's the quiet truth Rio carried, that sleep is not the reward for exhaustion, but a return to softness. As the last story settles into silence, let the hush of this forest wrap around you. You are no longer a visitor here. You are home. You've come a long way tonight, through lantern-lit paths and stories whispered by wind. You've sat beside the bamboo that bends, the owl that dreams, the child who listened, and the hermit who let go. But now, there are no more stories to tell. Not because the forest is done speaking, but because it's your turn to rest. Listen closely. Can you hear the hush beneath the hush? The way the trees breathe even when the wind is still. The distant song of a stream that doesn't rush, but gently hums its lullaby. That is the rhythm you now belong to. The healing forest was never a place to explore. It was a place to return to. A place that's always been here, beneath your thoughts, beyond your plans, beneath all the noise you carry. It asks nothing of you. You don't need to think. You don't need to figure anything out. Just be. Be as the stone that sits, the leaf that floats, the shadow that stretches across moss. Be unheld. Be unfinished. Be home. And if your eyes are still open, don't worry. The forest does not rush your sleep. It waits and waits and waits until your breath joins its rhythm. The stories were never separate. Each was a ripple in the same river, a current guiding you gently, without resistance, towards something you already know. That you are safe, that it is okay to let go. That peace is not something to earn, but something to allow. Tonight, you've allowed yourself to arrive, not at a destination, but in a state of softness, a state of surrender, a state where the weight can be set down. Finally, and if thoughts still try to pull you back, just smile at them. Like clouds, they will drift. Like echoes, they will fade. No need to chase them. No need to push them away. Just let them come and let them go. You don't have to hold on to anything tonight. Not a goal, not a memory, not even a single word. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not broken, you are not unfinished. You are simply here, and here is enough. As the stories settle into the soil and the stars fold gently into the leaves, you may find that you've become something new. Not someone stronger or wiser, but someone quieter. And in that quiet, sleep comes, not to take you away, but to return you to yourself, to peace, to the forest inside. So now, dear listener, no more words, no more lessons, no more effort. Just let the night carry you. Let the last embers of story glow softly until they become breath, and then dreams. You are safe. You are held. You are home. Good night.